This is a preview of Let Go, the Ride for R.E.T.O.W.N.E, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. As written and read by the author, me, Matthew W. Donovan. I'd like to begin by sharing a one-sentence tagline. I was forced to write this, trying to sell the book to agents. Unfortunately, it's really hard to get something tongue-in-cheek off the page. In a culture gone sideways, one man writes himself and rides into the maelstrom of society, into the chaos of his own heart, straight into the great unknown that isn't there. Introduction. It was a dim, streetlight-lit, frigid night. In a thick, tiny patch of wilderness beneath an overpass on the outskirts of Baltimore, I shivered a shiver that started its quivering deep within the tiniest particles of my body. And I spoke with a ghost, nearly ready to let go and join him. I thought back to just 4 days earlier. On that crisp morning of November the 6th, in the year of our dear sweet Lord 2021, I coasted down the driveway on my bike. I was leaving Somers Point, New Jersey, to begin a journey that terrified me. The reality hit me then, finally in that moment, that I actually had to go through with it. Though I did still genuinely believe that I would make it to Florida on a bicycle. You see, if necessity is the mother of invention, then desperation is the father of absurdity. I'd been the class clown before the chemical chaos of adolescence, depression, and self-medication turned those upside-down frowns inside out, making me into someone people just called a clown. And so there I was, 30-some years later, desperate to make sense of the tremendous amount of waste and loss that punctuated every part of my life and the world around me. I was rebuilding from next to nothing, again. In the midst of my third divorce before I was even 40, I went from sleeping on a couch in the Florida room of my best friend's house in Florida to a cot in the living room of a 4-bedroom house rented by 5 old friends in New Jersey. After getting COVID, I moved into a 2-bedroom cottage with a coworker a few blocks away. All these moves, a microcosm of my entire gypsy existence, occurred within about 6 months. And this was right after a week-long stint in the psych ward in Havre de Grace, Maryland, after splitting up with number 3. I'd been laid off from my seasonal position as a cook at the shore, then got fired from a junk removal company a year later while mourning the death of one of my oldest friends, Joey R.E.T.O.W.N.E. He was something like a brother to me when we were in our 20s. We shared a lot of travels and trials together shortly after high school. But as we got older, we just went our separate ways for a while. Me to try marriage and kids out a few times, and he just kept on drinking and arting around. After getting stranded in South Jersey when the country went into COVID lockdown, he was the one who gave me a place to stay on that cot in that living room. The Ride for R.E.T.O.W.N.E was a publicity stunt on the surface, meant to draw attention to the failing nonprofit I'd formed in Joey's honor. It was failing because, after getting fired from that junk removal job, I could no longer afford to pay for the storage units, multiple storage units, filled to the brim with R.E.T.O.W.N.'s inventory. Joey would have cringed at the whole fiasco from start to finish, scoffed at the idea of forming a charity built around a free thrift store. I know that, and I knew it then. Working for a junk removal company during COVID put me in a unique position. Business was actually doing pretty well for us. The upper middle class had little else to do but declutter since they were stuck at home. Those with less means were downsizing for their own economic reasons. And since I'm naturally inclined to save as much as possible from going to waste, I was teaching the other guys about sorting, recycling, and donating to all the thrift stores along our routes. Unfortunately, the thrift stores were at full capacity most of the time, since nearly everyone was getting rid of stuff. I came home with cool odds and ends at first, complaining about how much good, usable stuff was going into the landfill. Joey's idea before he died was for us to open up our own little junk shop, a place where we could sit around all day, put whiskey in our coffee, poke through cool old stuff, and play chess. Then, at night, we'd get our friends to come and play music and laugh at each other until it was time to go to bed. Or die, whichever happened to come first. Joey was kind of like Bacchus, but I never recognized it until he was gone. I'd always wanted to be that sexy Dionysian cult leader-like figure amongst our old friends. Joey was just naturally that way. My efforts always fell flat, or just landed me flat on my ass. I was a jester, I guess. A clown, like I said. I also never fully appreciated that Joey was like our very own Buddha, too. More Zen than Zen itself. So Zen, in fact, that it took him drinking himself to death, just a few months shy of his own 40th birthday, for me to finally understand what all his fuss was about. All he ever really wanted to do was say fuck it. Fuck it to all the terrible things life had thrown at us. He wanted to just hang out and have a good time while we still could. Any day, any one of us might, and eventually would, die. And he did. Joey died. Not only when we least expected it, but also well after we did. I miss him pretty bad most days. Some days I'm angry. Angry at him and at myself for all the wasted opportunities, wasted potential to do and to be something much more. Some days I just like to tell stories about the things we did together. Like how we rode a Greyhound from Atlantic City to North Hollywood when we were 19, and all the crazy shit that happened for the next 6 months on the road. I also like to tell people stories about the wild stuff Joey did when we went our separate ways for a while. Like how he operated an after-hours speakeasy in his Brooklyn basement, where poor punks hung out with celebrities, taking turns pissing in a hole in the floor and doing lines of coke off the makeshift plywood bar. So today I'm telling stories. I like to think they all connect in some profound metaphysical way, but in the end, I don't have a fucking clue. I've wanted to set the record straight about the ride for R.E.T.O.W.N.E for a few years now, and I wanted people that I once cared about to know why I really decided to ride a bicycle 1,300 miles. Of course, it absolutely was meant to honor Joey, but it was also about me. And just because it was about both, neither takes away from the other. I was trying to convince myself, not everybody else, that I was a good person. Whether other people thought I was or not didn't really concern me. You can't fill a cup from an empty pitcher. I'd wondered if it was all just a midlife crisis, an attempt to recapture some childlike wonder at the world to escape the nagging responsibilities of starting over with next to nothing. I'm still checking myself several years later. Was that all it was? And the answer is no. It was about R.E.T.O.W.N.E, which stands for Redistributing Equitably to Offset Worldwide Needs Efficiently. The ride was for Joey. It was penance for my failings as a friend, my failure to save him from drinking himself to death. And even the telling of the tale serves to make peace with the ghosts in my head. All you former friends out there, your ghosts are your own responsibilities. As I recovered from the actual ride, one of these former friends accused me of making the ride for R.E.T.O.W.N.E all about me. At first, I disagreed. Over time, I changed my mind. But I was wrong on both counts. Was the ride a success? Yes, but also no. Can I rightfully expect anyone else to understand? No. but I want someone to. Who the hell doesn't want some understanding? Do I owe anyone this explanation? Absolutely not. But at the very least, I owe it to myself to get it all out and move on. The bike was a trek, salvaged from a junk job in Baltimore 2 years earlier. Chalk that up to a lifestyle that preceded and eventually became R.E.T.O.W.N.E. I'd owned a Trek before, and it lived up to the hype as a comfortable, durable machine. The one I had before was a $25 purple Craigslist find that got me to work 5 days a week, 18 miles back and forth back in '08. That same purple bike got me around Baltimore for a while when I first moved in with number 3 before we got married. It reconnected me to that past life, riding from Wildwood to Cape May Courthouse. I kept this new silver and black Trek because of those fond memories, hoping to somehow recapture those feelings of freedom and to maybe shed a few of the excess pounds I'd gained over the years. A few generous donations to R.E.T.O.W.N.E covered some safety gear and new parts. The owner of the Tuckahoe bike shop donated the labor to get it all in shape for the long ride. People donated their time, money, effort, and belief. For a minute, R.E.T.O.W.N stood for something more than just free stuff. It stood for honoring the environment, our resources, and our friends. But what no one realized, not even myself until the ride was nearly over, was that I was a usable item that had been discarded. I was in need of repair and repurposing, just like the inventory I was struggling to hold on to and redistribute. I had been tossed aside as useless so many times, even by myself, in favor of just getting a new one, taking the easy way out, the short-term fix that ignores the long-term consequences and perpetuates the unsustainable march towards our culture's self-destruction. Was I guilty of treating others the same way? Of course I was. We all do it some way or another. The ride was about me, but it was about you as well. I wanted to give you something fantastic to believe in. I wanted to inspire you to be bold, to believe in yourself, and that you were capable of more than you realized. I fully believed I could make it to Florida, even until that last day in Baltimore. In some ways, I still believe I could have, and still could if I wanted to. No matter what I believed then or now, the results are the same. Friends were lost. Mistakes were made, and legends were born. The problem with legends is that they change over time, distorting the truth of what really happened. The solution that legends provide for themselves is the choice the audience makes about what lessons they'll learn. They're like those choose-your-own-adventure books from the '80s, and the readers can aspire to be the hero in the story or decide the narrator is the villain. It's what makes legends legends. Everything else is just a story. The ride for R.E.T.O.W.N is just one of many legends in the mythology of the soil sacks. It occurred at the end of our countercultural movement, a movement born within the desperate bowels of South Jersey at the close of the 20th century. Well, movement might be a stretch. Countercultural wiggle might be more appropriate. Although, a movement from the bowels may be entirely appropriate. Either way, the tale I am about to tell you is 100% true. From a certain point of view, anyway.